Hello, Fever fans. Welcome back to the Pacers Fever Show, your home for all things Indiana Fever. On today's episode, we're going to be diving into an end of another roller coaster week for the Indiana Fever. The team pulled off an impressive win against the Las Vegas Aces, a huge statement game and one of their more complete performances of the season so far. But just days later, the momentum slips away in a tough loss against the Los Angeles Sparks. It's been that kind of season for the Indiana Fever, thrilling highs and frustrating lows. And now they just sit at 9-9, still searching for consistency without Caitlin Clark. And as we head deeper into the summer grind, that gets even more difficult. We'll break down both games and what it means moving forward. Plus, we look ahead to the Fever's next game, a showdown with the Golden State Valkyries. Let's get into it. This is the Pacers Fever Show. We are over on YouTube. You can subscribe, like, comment, and share the videos there. And we're anywhere that you can find your podcast. Games 17 and 18 for the Indiana Fever, a win against the Las Vegas Aces, and that came on Thursday. Saturday was a loss to the Los Angeles Sparks, and the Indiana Fever continue to find issues with consistency, closing out games, and off of a high that was the Minnesota Lynx, a win at the Minnesota Lynx for the Commissioner's Cup title championship, coming back home, getting on a roll, and then winning that game against the Aces. Felt really good about it heading into Saturday, and then in Saturday, lay an egg in the last about 90 seconds of that game and end up dropping a game that they had in their hands to the Los Angeles Sparks. And again, the Fever have just not been able to get on a roll. They've only won 2 straight games as far as their longest winning streaks are concerned. They won 2 straight back against Washington and Chicago on June 3rd and 7th. They won 2 straight against the Liberty and Connecticut Sun back on June 14th and 17th. And then recently, June 27th and June 3rd, as far as the regular season is concerned, they were on a 3-game win streak if you count that Commissioner Cup game, but it does not count against the standings in the regular season. But the team had won 3 straight as far as the contest were concerned, if you include that Commissioner's Cup game. It just seems to be a difficult task to try to close games without Caitlin Clark, without your primary ball handler. And I think with all the things that Ari McDonald has done well, I still think, obviously, that Caitlin Clark is a big reason why you continue to have success in the WNBA and beyond. And honestly, it just feels like when Caitlin is not in the game to close, it all comes down to Kelsey Mitchell really closing out the game. Obviously, Aaliyah Boston's going to be involved in that as well. But it does feel that they still miss that primary playmaker that is going to be able to break down defense when it gets really intense and is able to find an open pass or hit a big shot in those moments. So until they figure that out, I still feel the Fever have really struggled to find any kind of groove and really get into a point where they are starting to get and kind of stack up wins. It's been a tough go with the injuries to Caitlin Clark. They are 5-4, I believe, with Caitlin Clark, 4-5 without. So it's not been necessarily easy without their best player and one of the better players in the WNBA. But they've done pretty well to kind of stay afloat. But as the season starts to go on, as these games start to come up, especially against Golden State and Atlanta, this is a tough stretch. And then they'll also host Dallas. So these are 3 teams that I feel either challenge the Fever pretty well. They've lost to Golden State and lost twice to Atlanta. They had a really tough game against Dallas. They ended up winning on the road. But these are really tough teams. And this is really where you want to capitalize, because right around the All-Star break, they've got the Connecticut Sun and the New York Liberty back-to-back. So they play Tuesday and Wednesday of next week on a back-to-back, flying around on the East Coast. They come back for the All-Star break, and then they go back to New York to play in Brooklyn against the Liberty on the 22nd at the Barclays Center. And it's going to be a really tough stretch there. I think that the Liberty I would favor them in both those games, coming off the second night of a back-to-back, then flying back out there after the All-Star break when you've had about a week to rest, and 3 of the Indiana Fever have made the All-Star team. I know that the Liberty have some All-Stars, but ultimately, I think it favors going back home and having to play on your home floor as far as Liberty are concerned after the break. But we will see. Caitlin Clark, there's a lot of questions around when will she play? Will she feature in the All-Star game? Because it is Indianapolis. It's because it's in Indy. We saw what this was like for Tyrese Halliburton when the Pacers hosted the All-Star game, and he basically became the mayor of the city, doing all sorts of different events and in the parades, and showcased often in interviews, and really was kind of that champion around the league, and getting guys connected with the city and different things like that. So he had a lot of host responsibilities, and I'm sure that Caitlin Clark, especially with the W, I think she's going to be used as a marketing idea, and we'll see what that does. We'll see if that is going to be something that wears on Caitlin. But at this point of the regular season, with the groin injury coming off that quad injury, I do wonder how much um, or how careful the Fever will be with Caitlin. I think that you could very well see a situation or scenario where maybe she does miss the games leading up to the All-Star game. That would be 5 more games, and that's quite a bit. And but I don't know. I don't know how they're going to handle this situation. She is doing some basketball activity and is starting to ramp up again. But the Fever want to make sure that she is right. And with the back-to-backs coming up next Tuesday, Wednesday, the All-Star game being that weekend, I think they start Friday, Saturday. So all those festivities, you really want your best player to be 100% if they're going to participate in those All-Star game activities. It's a tough situation right now, I think, for the Fever, and I think that you can look right across the way at what happened with the Indiana Pacers and Tyrese Halliburton and all of the games that he had to play in, then goes straight into an Eastern Conference Finals. And then after the Eastern Conference Finals run, they go into the Olympics, and Tyrese didn't really have a break after the All-Star game was, in Indianapolis and the in-season tournament. I mean, you start to stack so many games on a player, and it can become very difficult for them to stay healthy in that time, especially if they're dealing with soft tissue or muscle issues with a groin or a quad. Anything like that, you're concerned that those can linger, and if they're not fully healed, they'll just continue to get stressed out, and ultimately I think it ends up hurting the player more and more as they try to continue to play on those soft tissue injuries and muscle injuries. So we will see how the Fever handle that going forward. I know they are probably going to do some walkthrough on Monday. We're recording this on Sunday, but they're probably going to do some walkthrough on Monday, and then or a practice on Monday, and then a walkthrough Tuesday, and see how she's going after that. I know that it will be a very busy time over there at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, as the Pacers are also ramping up for their summer league play. So I know all the reporters will be down there covering that. Media will be down there. So we'll get some updates on Caitlin as well from all of the ND reporters. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that's all going to be like as we start to go through, again, this stretch that they really could use Caitlin, but also you don't want to rush her back, and you want to get her 100% right with whatever she might be dealing with that's lingering with the groin or the quad injury, and then move forward from that point on. Because when she does return, if she does return after the All-Star break and she takes the next 5 games, I think it is, off, that will be halfway point through the season. Again, the WNBA 44 games, and I believe that would be the 22nd game or 23rd game right before the All-Star break. So you're right at the halfway point. And then you only got the 20, I think it'd be, at that point, it'd be 21 games left of the regular season before the playoffs, and the Fever are not in a great situation. They're still in the playoffs as the standings currently are, but you start to worry about the more time that Caitlin misses, the more ramp up it's going to be. And then, even though she is a superstar player, one of the better players in this league, an MVP candidate when healthy, it is still difficult to integrate her back into the offense along with Ari McDonald into that bench unit. So again, it's not been a good situation so far as Caitlin's missed 9 games. This sophomore season, obviously not going as planned for Caitlin and the Fever. And then you had all the injury issues, the distractions off the court, and now you're ramping up to a very busy time in Indianapolis. Speaking of, Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark were named to the All-Star game, and then reserves were named as well. Kelsey Mitchell was named an All-Star, and that will be 3 Indiana Fever headed to the All-Star games. I want to check. I meant to check this. I want to check because I know. So Kelsey Mitchell, this is, I believe, her third. That's what I wanted to check. Yeah, third for Kelsey Mitchell. She joins Aaliyah Boston and Tamika Catching as the only Indiana Fever players to earn 3 WNBA All-Star selections. Caitlin Clark has the 2 now, so she will join that as well I'm assuming next season if she's healthy. So again, I think this is a big weekend coming up, not this coming weekend, but the following for the Indiana Fever and hosting the All-Star game because you have 3 players in it. And you just worry about usage and the amount of games that they're having to play in a short stretch of time. And so that'll be something I think that the Fever will monitor. I think that is hopefully something that they can get around while also giving those players opportunities to play in those really good games and fun games and games that they've deserved over the course of the season so far. I can't believe we're almost to the halfway point of the season. It seems like this has gone by very quickly, and I know that 44 games, that'll happen because the NBA game season is 82 games plus about 12 months for the playoffs. But all joking aside, I think that the fact that it's almost halfway through this season is pretty shocking to a lot of people throughout the league. We're going to go through the standings right now, and then we'll get into some of the games here. We're going to do some quick recap or discussion of each of the games that the Fever played over this last week, starting with that Vegas game, and then we'll head into the Sparks game and talk a little bit about it as that happened over the 4th of July weekend, and we have not recorded since, so I thought I would jump on here on Sunday afternoon after getting back from all the July 4th festivities and record an episode to get this out there and talk Fever and catch up. So the standings as they currently are on July 6th on Sunday, the Minnesota Lynx are 17-2 in first place. The Phoenix Mercury, they are 12-6 in second place. The New York Liberty are 12-6 in third place. The Seattle Storm in fourth at 12-7. The Atlanta Dream 11-7, and they are again in that 5th seed. Golden State Valkyries in 6th at 9-8. The Fever 9-9 in 7th place. The Vegas Aces are 9-9 in the 8th spot, and that rounds out the playoffs if they were to start today. In the 9th spot, the Washington Mystics 8-10. The Los Angeles Sparks 10th place, 6-13. The 11th place Dallas Wings at 6-13. The 12th place Chicago Sky 5-12. And the Connecticut Sun still sitting on 2 wins out of their 18, so they are 2-16 in that last spot. So I would pretty much say that the Connecticut Sun are out of it. Chicago Sky are really starting to get into a real danger spot there where they currently sit. And I would even say the Sparks in Dallas at this point, I mean, they've got some ground to make up if they're going to catch the number 8th seed Las Vegas Aces. The Mystics, I think, are in a pretty good spot still. They are 2 games under 500. They are a game behind the Vegas Aces, but I do think that is a team that could challenge to maybe push themselves into the playoffs. But the other teams, I mean, Dallas has been on a nice little run. They've won 5 of their last 10. They've won 2 straight. They've been playing better basketball, I think, as Paige Beckers gets more experience, the better that team becomes. And I think once everybody returns and has returned from Euro basketball, and I think it's AmeriCup or whatever they call that for the American side of things, South America, North American teams, that's when you're going to have everybody back and competing. And then I think you really start to see these teams push. But I mean, just looking at the standings, the Lynx 4.5 games up on the Mercury. We saw just how talented they are, and they disposed of the Valkyries in their last game. As the Fever will play them coming up on Wednesday, as far as the Valkyries are concerned. So it's starting to find, or teams are starting to find their footing. They're starting to really play their best basketball of the season. I mean, the Lynx have won 5 straight. If you remove the Commissioner's Cup, the Seattle Storm have stormed back and are now currently sitting in the 4th spot and looking to chase down the Mercury and the Liberty. The Liberty not playing as well in their last 10. They've only won 4 of their last 10, so they've not been that great over this stretch. So I think that favors the teams below them. And then Atlanta, Golden State also playing pretty well in their last 10. Atlanta 6-4 in their last 10. And then the Valkyries are 7-3. And that's who the Fever have up next, and who the Fever are currently chasing a half a game behind them. And just recently lost to the Lynx when the Fever beat the Lynx. So maybe some good some good prospects going forward as far as what the Fever can do to move up the standings. But that is currently, as it sits on July 6th, around, or it's like 10:30 p.m. So we will continue to discuss the rest of the league as the season unfolds, and we might even do a halfway point with how it's going right at the All-Star break, just to update you all on what's going on throughout the NBA, maybe some updates on injuries and different things like that, where we do like a WNBA overview. But that was the standings. Now, moving into these games, on Thursday, the Fever did a very nice job of defending Asia Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces. One of the best performances that the Fever, I think the best performance that the Fever have had defensively against any team. The Aces only shot 26.2% from the field, only making 16 of 61. They were 3 of 16 from three-point land at 18%. The rebounds were controlled by mostly the Fever. 37-26 was the difference there. The Fever out-rebounded. They outscore. They shoot the ball extremely well. Fever shot 49.2% from the field, 31 of 63, and they were 5 of 16 from the three-point line. The Fever really took it to Vegas in this game defensively. I thought that their intensity, this was the most intense I think I've ever seen the defense, and I think it comes off of the way that they've also defended against the Lynx in that Commissioner Cup final. I thought that there was a different kind of intensity there. They're leaning into this very physical, very intense style of defense, and it's worked out extremely well. I think that's been the biggest difference that I've noticed as far as, progression. I know that the offense every once in a while has these games where they have stretches where they go quiet, and that was the case in the fourth quarter against the Aces. But because the Aces only score 7 points in the fourth, the Fever really didn't have to do much, and they were way ahead in that game because they used a 15-point difference in the second to really extend their lead over the Aces. They were leading at the half 46-24. And it just, the clamps came out. I thought Natasha played well defensively. Kelsey, Lexi Hull, I think Aaliyah Boston really controlled the paint pretty well. Asia was just not able to get her footing early. She did have 29 in the game, but I felt like early on, I thought the Fever did pretty well trying to contain her, and really they made her the only option, because the next leading scorer on the team on Thursday was Jackie Young, who had 6 points. And when you do that, when you are eliminating the other options, I mean, Chelsea Gray, not good in this game. She had just 2 points on 1 of 3 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3. and played 23 minutes, just didn't contribute as much there. Uh, Dana Evans shot 1 of 10 from the field, so that's not that's not ideal. It just did not work out well for the Aces in Thursday's game, and this is a team that's very interesting to watch because they've got moments of where they look like a playoff level team. And then there's other times where they just look like they are a one option team with a superstar, best player in the league, reigning MVP, and they rely only on her to do the bidding for the Vegas Aces. And it does not look pretty often. It's a lot of just get the ball into Asia and then see what happens outside of that. And so Vegas, I mean, you've got the teams below them in the standings that I truly believe that could challenge Vegas because they just they've not been able to find consistency either, and their consistency is really based in what a Chelsea Gray might do or Asia Wilson might do, Jackie Young. I don't know. I'm not too impressed in the games that I've seen the Aces play, even though Vegas beat the Fever the last time out. But it really was only Asia Wilson getting hot at the end of that game, that second half, that really turned that game, and the Fever lost it because again they've struggled to close out games. And speaking of closing out games, we'll move over to the Sparks game, which was on Saturday night, or sorry, Saturday afternoon. Really, Saturday night, yeah, because I was watching it on the beach. We went to a restaurant over there in Fort Myers Beach with the family for 4th of July festivities, and then we ended up watching the Fever play the Sparks. And it really was a game that I felt Indiana didn't play its best, but I thought stayed in it long enough and played well in the first half to the point where, again, it wasn't their best game, but I felt like Indiana was going to come out with a victory just because while it was close, I just felt Indiana's they were making the plays they needed to make, especially in that fourth quarter. But then all of a sudden, a 6-0 drought to end. I think it was the last 90 seconds that the Fever really dropped that game. And Azurá Stevens, 21 points and added 12 boards. She was brilliant in this game, especially in the second half. Kelsey Plum added 20 points, and I actually felt like it was a quiet 20 points. I looked down at one point and was like, man, she has 20 points. But I thought she played really well. Rakia Jackson, 15 points. Darica Hamby, 18, and good contributions from all of the starters for the Sparks. I felt they played not a more complete game, but until the end of the game, the Fever kind of come up short and didn't really play their best basketball in that fourth quarter. Only scored 18 points. I thought the Sparks defense was really good in that quarter. That kind of put the cap on the Fever's offense, and I felt that the Fever without Caitlin Clark, they're going to rely heavily on Kelsey Mitchell, Leah Boston in those situations towards the end of the game, and even Natasha Howard at points. It didn't happen. Kelsey Mitchell, I don't think, shot the ball particularly well in this one, 8 for 17, even though she went 50% from three. She had 19 points, Leah Boston 23 points on 9 of 17 shooting, and Natasha Howard 8 of 11, 21 points. I will say one thing about this game that I think going forward, and she was excellent against the Lynx as well, but the way that Natasha Howard is playing right now, this is the best basketball we've seen from her as a Fever player. And I think it's only going to get better from here. So now you've got quite a force when Caitlin returns because Ari McDonald will return to the bench. It will be Caitlin in that spot. And you're now looking at a Natasha Howard who's probably going to give you at least 15 a night, maybe 12 to 15 a night. You have Leah Boston who can easily get 20 in games. Kelsey Mitchell, same kind of thing. I mean, she's gone on quite a tear. And I think last night was the first time she hadn't scored 20 in quite a bit. But Kelsey Mitchell, again, a 20-point scorer most nights. You look at how well Natasha, Kelsey, and Aaliyah are playing, and you're just excited about the fact that Caitlin is coming back soon And honestly, I felt like Lexi was probably the worst player on Saturday. I felt like she had moments where she struggled quite a bit. And again, I think that she is a better player when Caitlin's out there just because of her ability to shoot. She rebounds the ball well for a guard. But I do feel like Caitlin unlocks some things for Lexi that really just make her a step and above what she is without Caitlin. And so that'll be interesting to watch as she comes back. They got good production from the bench as well. Sydney Colson, 6 points, had some really excellent passes, had 5 assists off the bench. She was really good in this one. Sophie Cunningham had 4 points, gives you that Sophie Cunningham presence. I think there's times where she's really good defensively, and that really makes a difference and can throw a body out there. But the one that I was impressed with the most was Michaela Tempson. She had quite a block. I can't remember on exactly who it was, but she had one hell of a block, and she's becoming quite a good player for a rookie. I feel like she's gotten a lot of confidence. She had 6 boards, she had one block, she did have 2 turnovers, but she did shoot 2 of 4 and had 5 points. She's really turned into a very solid bench option, and they're going to need that going forward because while Dantas has been out with the Brazilian national team, she returns. I think she returns on Wednesday because I think they played their final game, but I could be wrong on that. But I think Dantas she's scoring like crazy with the Brazil national team, so I'm excited to see that confidence come back. I mean, if Dantas comes back and she can be a 10 to 15 point scorer off the bench, which I believe that is what she can do and can provide as she grows into her game. I think that this bench, along with Michaela Tempson, Sydney Colson, and Cunningham, you've got one of the better benches in the WNBA if they continue to play the way that they are. So I'm fascinated, and you add Ari McDonald into that mix. I'm fascinated to see what they can be when Dantas returns and Caitlin returns, because this is becoming a very deep team that you can rely on 10 to almost 11 players, I guess. It's a great thing to have, especially as the season wears on and as the playoffs approach, to have those options and go with what is working. I think that the Fever are really starting to round out pretty well. And I think that although they dropped this game late, which continues to be an issue, but I think will continue to be an issue because their best players are younger. Their closers are younger in Caitlin and Aaliyah. I mean, once those two get more and more experience in the clutch, I think once they figure out, how to close out games, because Kelsey Mitchell can close out games, but there are times where she kind of defers because she's not really that. I mean, she's not really the primary ball handler. She's not really the one that's going to take over, especially because of how she plays side by side with Caitlin. It's going to be more on Caitlin to do that. And then if she finds Kelsey Mitchell to be open, that's when you hit that. It's a lot of Aaliyah Boston to close out games too. And they're both, third and second year players. So the more that you can get them in these situations, the more that they can figure out how they can operate most effectively, most efficiently in these spots. I think that's going to be really important for the Fever going forward and in their careers. So a disappointing loss, like I said, in the fourth quarter. It all comes apart at the end, and this continues again to be a trend. But I think as the season goes on, and I hope I don't keep saying this because it does seem like every time that this happens, I'm like, well, eventually I'll figure it out. You put yourselves in enough situations like this, I think you do eventually figure out, all right, here's what we need to do to close. But it can take time because this is an extremely experienced team in the Sparks. This is a team that I feel would do well in late in games because of Kelsey Plum. They know who they're going to get that ball to. When you've got teams like that, when you're playing against teams that have that closer on their team, it can be very difficult to win those games, especially if you're inexperienced. And Kelsey Plum, who's been in this league a while now and is a really good player, good scorer, good distributor, I feel like that can be very difficult to deal with. And especially if you don't have the closer to match. And that's ultimately what happens in this game. Fever, again, lose that 89-87. And they will move on to play Golden State Valkyries at noon on Wednesday, July 9th. Again, that's at noon at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The reason why it is a 12 o'clock Eastern time tip is because it is Kids Day. So all the kids are out of school. Going to be a ton of kids there. They'll probably bus. I think they bus people in and all sorts of. So it's a lot of fun. Kids will be very excited, screaming. I'm assuming. I did hear that some of the and they're doing this across the league at some of the other venues as well. But I did hear, I think it was somebody was calling into 1070 fan and said that they went last year and that they had earplugs available so that if the kids screeching was hurting your ears, that you could go get some earplugs. But I don't know if that's true. I don't know if they were being funny, but um, I thought that was pretty interesting. The last time the Fever played the Golden State Valkyries, again, speaking of late game collapses, the Fever jumped out to a 21-12 first quarter lead. And then slowly but surely, Golden State starts to chip away. And in the third quarter, the Fever, let's do some math here 44, 59. The Fever had 59. Golden State had 55. So, yeah. So the Fever led by 4 leading into the fourth. And all of a sudden, the Valkyries outscore Indiana 33-12 in the fourth. So in 10 minutes, they get beat by 15. Valkyries end up winning that game 88-77, and a complete collapse. Caitlin Clark was healthy for that game. She was only 3 of 14 from the field. She shot 0 of 7 from 3. This is when you started to see some lingering and maybe some issues with the groin. I believe it was when she was in pregame. She seemed to be favoring it a little bit. And then after that, shortly after that, I think they went and played the Storm after. And then shortly after, they deemed it a groin injury. It was not really a good game at all from, most of the players in that, especially the starters in that game. Kelsey Mitchell, 16 points on 6 of 11 shooting. Leah Boston, 17 points on 7 of 11 shooting. Natasha Howard, 13 points on 6 of 11 shooting. Caitlin Clark, 11 points on 3 of 14. They had Dantas there too, 1 of 4 from the field, 3 points. Sydney Colson, 2 of 3, 5 points. Sophie Cunningham had 9 points, 3 of 7 from the 3-point line, and that's how she got her 9. But really, when the bench units came in, that's when they struggled. When Caitlin Clark was in, they were just empty possession after empty possession, especially late in that game, just not able to put the closing touch on that, and really got stomped in defensively. They just didn't play well defensively. That crowd gets into it in the fourth. They start to go on that run, and then it's night time because that Valkyries arena is insane. I think it's the Chase Center, but they are. I saw a tweet that they have the highest valuation of a WNBA team, and I think they've gone up by like $450 million as far as their value or something like that. It's insane how how quickly that team has grown. With an expansion side, you don't typically see the success that they've had. And when you look at Golden State, really they've done it a multitude of different ways. They rebound the basketball really well. They shoot a lot of 3-pointers. They are the worst as far as the percentages are concerned, but they shoot a lot. They make a lot. They make 8, almost 9 3-pointers a game. So that's definitely something that you've got to try to eliminate. They aren't necessarily the best scoring team. They're ranked 10th in the WNBA at 79 points per game. And if you look at the way they defend, and this is the team that's just above the Fever in the standings, but if you look at the way they defend, that's where they really bank on how, on these players having a lot of veteran experience. They're a good defensive team. They're the second in the league in defensive rating at 97.8, which is still 3.7 behind the first place Lynx. That's how good the Minnesota Lynx have been. But again, if you're looking at another really good defensive stalwart, you can look no further. You don't have to look any further than Golden State. They're led in scoring by Kayla Thornton. She's been really good over this stretch with the Valkyries. She had 16 points the last time the Fever played them and led the team in scoring. But they really do. They get a lot of contributions. It's pretty spread out as far as their scoring is concerned. Monique Billings, 8 points last game against the Fever. Veronica Burton, 11 points last game. Carla Late had 8 points. Chloe Bibby had 12. Letitia Amahir had 10 points. Tiffany Hayes 14, and Kate Martin, Caitlin's old teammate in Iowa, had 9 in that game against the Fever their last time out. The last game that Valkyries played against, like I mentioned, was against the Minnesota Lynx. They get beat 82-71 against the Lynx. Kayla Thornton had 13 points, Stephanie Talbot 10 points, Tiffany Hayes 23, and then the rest had under 10 points. They've gotten their players back from Eurobasket, so that will be something that the Fever will see that they've not yet seen against when they've played teams like this. So they have Tammy Bagbenle, who played for the Fever, had 7 points against the Lynx. So we'll see her for the first time. Cecilia Zondalicini, she is back from her stretch over there. Janelle Salon also back. And then I don't believe we saw Caitlin Chen the last time. So those are players that they've added since have played in games and will be playing against the Fever, who did not play the last time. So they have an interesting mix of players, a lot of good veteran players. I did see something early on I think it was one of the power rankings that said it's a collection of like sixth women. So a lot of people looking to prove themselves that they can be starters. And so far, so good. The Valkyries have been a pretty good expansion team behind a organization that really supports them. And so that's going to be something that I think you notice. And even at Gamebridge, I think you're going to have quite a few Valkyrie fans in attendance, and they support their team extremely well. It's been a good ride for them. They're not necessarily the best team on the road. They're 2-5 away from home, so they've not been quite as effective on the road. Obviously, they're pretty on par with what you'd expect from an expansion team in that sense. It's been a lot of that home crowd magic that they've been able to use to take themselves. They're 7-3 on their home floor, so you do get a very different looking team when you're talking about home and away splits for the Valkyries. And again, because they shoot a lot of 3-pointers, I think that's part of it. I think you shoot yourself out of games a lot, and more so on the road because your role players aren't hitting as many threes. And the Valkyries will turn the ball over. That's something that the Fever can do to try to eliminate some of that advantage they might get from their 3-point shooting. I do feel that the Valkyries, if you can speed them up, will turn the ball over. They average 15 turnovers a game, which is ninth in the WNBA, tied for ninth with the Connecticut Sun. So, I mean, 0.1 from being 10th place in the WNBA, which is one of the league's worst as far as hanging on to the basketball. And so that's where you can get them in that possession battle. And I think that's where you have to do it because they rebound the basketball so well. They're second in the league in rebounds. So I think that if you can eliminate their 3-point shooting to where they're not doing it as effectively because they're going to shoot a lot of threes. If they're not hitting at a high percentage, if you can get them to turn the ball over, play at a pace that you want to play, I think that's a big thing. If the Fever can play at their pace, the Fever should win this game. I just don't think that the Valkyries can really set their defense, which is their second best in the league defensively. But if you can get them out going at your pace, it's going to be very difficult for them to set their defense to get into positions to make it difficult for the Fever players to score. I think that's where you have a tremendous advantage against this Valkyries team. Obviously, key players, Kayla Thornton, I think you've got to find a way to limit her. Tiffany Hayes is also a player that can get hers. After that, I mean, Salon can score, and she's played some game, or she's now getting back in the mix where she had started all the games where she was playing with Valkyries until she goes to Eurobasket. And as she comes back, she's not, she features on the bench against the Lynx. Temi Fagbenle, I don't think she's going to be a consistent, 10 plus scorer, so you can keep her at bay somewhat. I don't think they quite have the scoring to keep up with the Fever. If the Fever can score against their really good defense, I just don't know the Valkyries can keep up on the road, and ultimately should give the advantage to the Fever. So if you're talking about keys to the game, I think number one is closing out the game this time. I mean, this is a Valkyries team that while Kayla Thornton is good, I don't believe she's really the player that can really close out a ton of games. I mean, she's hit or miss. It's a very much a roller coaster ride when you're watching this team try to score the basketball. They don't have the elite level scorer that the Fever do, and the Fever have quite a few of those. I think the depth and being able to run at them and using your pace is the second key. I think that you have to get at their defense by making them work, making them run, get those second chance opportunities, turn them over because you can score on the fast break. I think they conceded 19 points against the Lynx on turnovers last game. So you're able to score on them in transition. It's when you get into that half court that they're way more effective. I just feel a lot of things point to the Fever being able to do things against this team. Number three, I think getting to the boards, trying to keep it as even as possible. This is a really good rebounding team. You sure don't want to give them second chance opportunities when it comes to play on your home floor. Those can be run killers, rally killers, whatever it might be. You just can't let teams beat you on the boards. And that's something that the Fever have had a tendency to do, allowing them to do that and then also getting beat in the paint. I just don't think that there is. Um, I just don't think it's going to sound. I don't think it sounds like it's going to be the Fever having control. Or sorry, the Valkyries getting any kind of control in this game. The Fever controlling this game throughout and then closing them out in the fourth quarter. So I've got the confidence there. I think it's going to happen. I would be shocked if the Fever lose this game. I think that this is still a good Valkyries team, so you can't sleep on them. But I do think that they've got the advantage at home and should be able to get back over where it's 10 or 10-9, game over 500, and then they can start to focus on, can we get this right and going in the right direction, and then get Caitlin back, and then that's when you take off on these runs. But it's going to be difficult because you don't want to lose this game, because then you have a game against Atlanta waiting, and Atlanta is a very tough team, one of the better teams in the WNBA. They really struggle with Atlanta. I think it's probably their worst matchup, honestly, because of the Atlanta Dream's size. And then you have to worry about a Dallas team that is starting to heat up a little bit. So you really, I think this is a game you got to get, and it's going to be an interesting one because Golden State, different kind of animal on the road. They're just not the same as they usually are. So we will see what happens. I think that this will be a fun one, but I think the Fever would probably be favored to win this and win it pretty handedly. So we'll see. I know weirder things have happened, but looking ahead, like I said, July 11th, Friday, that's going to be Atlanta Dream, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Ion at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Sunday, July 13th, versus the Dallas Wings, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC and ESPN Plus at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Tuesday, July 15th, at Connecticut, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN at TD Garden. Wednesday, July 16th, second night of back-to-back, they will travel to Brooklyn to play the New York Liberty, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS Sports Network at the Keith Barclays Center. Then they head home to Indianapolis for the All-Star game. So I think it's the Friday, the 18th, Saturday the 19th are the All-Star festivities. And then Tuesday, they head back out on the road against the Liberty, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN Plus at the Barclays Center. July 24th is a Thursday versus the Vegas Aces back at home at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Prime Video at Gainbridge. Sunday, July 27th at Chicago Sky, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC ESPN at the United Center. And then to round out July, they play Wednesday, July 30th versus the Phoenix Mercury, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN3 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. So that is the schedule ahead for the rest of July. Then we head into pretty much a home stretch. I mean, we'll be about 3/4 of the way through, and it'll be ramp up time for the playoffs. And we're hoping that everybody's healthy. Caitlin getting back healthy. Everybody's going to give it a run then, and we'll see how they do against some of the better teams. We've not seen the Mercury yet, so I'm interested to see how they play against them, and some more games coming up with the Liberty. So that will be instrumental in how they compete and perform against those two teams, including the Dream as well, I guess you could throw in there. So looking forward to that, looking forward to the rest of July. We will be discussing the game on Wednesday, probably on Thursday. We'll talk about the recap there, and we'll preview the rest of the schedule ahead. I think the Atlanta Dream game, and then after that we'll be previewing all the other ones and talking about all things Fever. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it so far. Again, like I said, we are over on YouTube, the Pacers Fever Show. We do our episodes there, video version. You can also find the audio versions anywhere you get your podcast. Hoping that Caitlin Clark, we get an update there. You can follow along on socials, and we'll be updating you there if we get any news from Caitlin Clark and crew, which we should be getting here shortly, as far as what she looks like for the availability for that game on Wednesday. So we will look on Monday to see if there's anything from Stephanie White, but definitely by Tuesday we should have some information. We can tweet about that. But again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We will see you next time, where we will be recapping the Indiana Fever game versus the Golden State Valkyries.